not to stir up controversy right after Christmas, but since Phil Robertson was reinstated on Duck Dynasty, and I should have commented on this a while back. By the way, I almost got that paper done, so that's a whole nother discussion, but I'll let you know how that goes once that gets updated. Anyway, back to the point. So, I had to kind of weigh in on the Phil Robertson thing. In terms of the comments about homosexuality, I could have honestly taken or left them because homosexuality is a whole nother discussion, and as I said, homosexuality is a whole nother discussion, and I could have gotten into it, but it's another discussion, and if you want to get into it on the comments or whatever, you can. I'll try to give my side of the argument. I've already given it on Twitter, and by the way, I'm also multi-checking here, so multitasking. Oi, me and my ADD. Anyway, so I could see that people do continue to read my blog and stuff and do pay attention to my tweets and all that, so if you've already heard all this before, or already seen this or whatever, then, well, either you're paying attention to it again or you're just doing whatever. But for those who haven't heard it, as I said with the comments about homosexuality, I could have honestly taken or left them. The comments that I had a real problem with were the comments about racism. Well, comments about racism. Well, yeah, okay, because Jim Crow was racism, and Phil Robertson said, and I can read you what he said, and people have accused me of not reading the original GQ quote. Here's what he said. He said, and I agree with Michelle Fields and others that the racism was the real problem, whereas the homosexuality comments, again, one could take or leave in my opinion. And this is where I had a problem, and the more that I looked into the, let's see, this is what he says. I never, with my eyes, saw the mistreatment of any black person. Not once. Where we lived was all farmers. The blacks worked for the farmers. I held cotton with them. I'm with the blacks because we're white trash. We're going across the field. They're singing and happy. I never heard one of them, one black person, say, I'll tell you what, these doggone white people. Not a word. Pre-entitlement, pre-welfare. You say, were they happy? They were godly. They were happy. No one was singing the blues. And let me tell you something. I'm an abuse victim. I'm a survivor of abuse. And my sister got mad at me for this, but I said, do you remember when that social worker said that Dad had never abused me and that you never had the bruise on your nose? Yeah, but Phil Robertson was just using the experience card. That's different. Well, no, it isn't different. I never with my eyes saw the mistreatment of any black person. Michelle did not have a bruise on her nose. The same thing. If you didn't see it, it didn't happen. And that's exactly what Phil Robertson's saying. He makes emphatic statements just like that social worker made. If he didn't see it, it didn't happen. If she didn't see it, it didn't happen. And that's, like I said, if you already seen this on Twitter, you already seen this, but that's exactly, again, he made emphatic statements. I never with my eyes saw the mistreatment of any black person, not once. Where we lived was all farmers. The blacks worked for the farmers. By the way, it's also a diss at sharecropping. The blacks worked for the farmers. Oh no, they weren't being sharecropped. They weren't being put into de facto slavery. They weren't being segregated. They weren't being denied wages unfairly. I mean, what else can you say to Phil Robertson's ignorant comment? That's exactly the implication of the words. The blacks worked for the farmers, not, oh, the blacks were forced into de facto slavery, or, oh, the blacks were denied fair wages, or, oh, the blacks were basically treated like crap. Oh, the blacks worked for the farmers, and, oh, the blacks voluntarily. That's the implication. They worked for the farmers, not that they were forced into de facto slavery that they couldn't get out of. It's like when it's like if people would say, well, you went to your dad's for the weekend, things must have been okay. Yes, I went to my dad's. I was forced to go over there by court order. And that, again, that's exactly, it's the same thing as if someone made the implication of, well, you went over your dad's. Again, I was forced to by court order. Same thing. The blacks didn't work for the farmers. They were forced into de facto slavery, just like I was forced to go to my dad's for the weekends. And he says, I'm with the blacks because we're white trash. Okay, I'm with the blacks because we're white trash. Forgive my language, Phil Robertson, but with all due respect, okay, you saying I'm with the blacks because we're white trash, you saying that you're with the blacks because you're quote-unquote white trash is bullshit. First of all, quote-unquote white trash was not lynched. White trash was not targeted by the KKK. White trash was not treated the way that blacks were treated. And it'd be like the same thing if someone said, well, it'd be like if a Russian person back in the old days had said, well, I'm with the Jews because we're whatever, or some Polish person said, well, I'm with the Jews because we're white, you know, fill in the blank. It'd be the same thing. It'd be like if someone said, if someone grew up during that era where the pogroms were happening and said, I'm with the Jews because we're white. And unfortunately, Poles are really called this. Unfortunately, it'd be like if Poles, and I'm censoring the word, but it'd be like if a Pole said, I'm with the Jews because we're white Ners. So it's like the same thing. You're saying that you're with a group that was systematically and deliberately targeted for persecution when your own group was not persecuted in the same way, if at all. And he goes on, we're going across the field, they're singing and happy. I never heard one of them, one black person say, I'll tell you what, those doggone white people, not a word. Well, guess what, Phil Robertson? That's because you refused to look beyond the surface. You assumed that what you saw is what you got, and that there weren't things going on beyond the surface. And it's the same way my family is in a lot of ways. If we didn't see it, it didn't happen. For example, oh, bullshit, Jack Zarnecki wasn't really like that. Jack Zarnecki didn't abuse people. What about that? So, for example, if you want to go ahead and read my granddad's obituary, are you going to take it at face value? Just like you took at face value when blacks were apparently quote-unquote singing and happy? It's just unbelievable. And the thing is, too, by the way, when I confronted my dad on my granddad's obituary, he said, okay, who's talking about it? And what are they saying? And you would figure that my dad would want to save face. You think that Phil Robertson would want to be decent enough to save face and say, well, I didn't see what was going on at the time, but now that I know what was going on, I admit that I said stupid things and that there was Jim Crow going on. Just like my dad could have said, yeah, I could have saved face and, you know, listed your stepsisters after you and Michelle and not made myself and my dad look like idiots who didn't care about their own daughters and granddaughters. So, and he goes on, pre-entitlement, pre-welfare, you say, were they happy? They were happy. Or they were godly, they were happy, no one was singing the blues. Again, it's just like when that social worker said Michelle didn't have a bruise on her nose, Nicole was never abused. It's like when my family says, oh, bullshit, Jack Zarnecki and Greg Zarnecki never abused you once. So, in some ways, and let me clarify before I get called a hypocrite and trashed on, in some ways, I can relate to these African Americans who were under Jim Crow, because sure, I wasn't under something like Jim Crow, but I was certainly under abuse. And even, I can go back on my Twitter reactions, and while I'm finding this here, I'm going to explain something to you. For one thing, just because you didn't see it, doesn't mean it didn't happen. On the other, just because someone tells you that something happened, doesn't necessarily mean that it happened. But if someone's going to tell you, hey, I was abused, they usually wouldn't lie about something like that. And most people would have no reason to lie about getting abused. And it's just amazing that some people would say, Okay, I'm getting closer to where, let me see if I can find it here, because I keep all my tweets. I don't, unless I blocked a person, I really didn't delete any of the tweets or whatever. And I'm going down here. He's like this one person, and I told him that I am an abuse survivor, and that's what he said to me. I'm trying to find it. Let's see. Mind. I'm trying to find it because that tweet just really touched me. And I can tell you, it was so weird that he said that, because it's like, no, I'm not a mind reader. I'm just a person who survived abuse. And when I find that tweet for you, I will read it. And, okay. So weird. You'd think I have it unless I deleted it. I feel like an idiot because that tweet was there. And, by the way, you can see how years of verbal abuse is probably in my vocabulary. Because, you know, I say the thing about idiot and this and... Holy moly, it's just, I cannot find that tweet. I wish I could. Because, just amazing how he said it. He was like, well, what are you, a mind reader? And I told him, no, I'm just a survivor of verbal abuse. And, because I was able, once I saw those comments, I was able to catch that Phil Robertson is just as nasty as the people who are being nasty to me. Okay, I think this might be it. And let me see. Oh no, this is another conversation. And I'm trying to find it. Because, let's see. And they said I didn't read the original transcript. I did. I just read you the thing from GQ. And people were attacking me like crazy, so I had to block plenty of people that night. And I'm trying to find it. It's frustrating me because he asked me, whoa, what are you, a mind reader? And it amazed me. It's like, again, I wasn't reading his mind at all. I wasn't. And it's just like, it amazed me that someone could catch that I knew that intimately what he was thinking, and that I could catch on to that. Holy bees, Mir, I wish I could find it. I hope I didn't block him. I pray that I didn't block him, because this guy... Let's see. Oh. Okay, not that one. I'm trying to find it. Wish I hadn't blocked his account if I did. And let's see. Yeah, some of these people are just completely nasty. Just completely nasty. And let's see. And trying to find it, because the tweet just really, it stuck with me. And see, people are going to say, well, you don't have the evidence, thus it didn't happen, thus you must be lying. So the same kind of thing, and that's where I feel like an idiot, because I don't always have the evidence. It's like, I need to transport you back in time so that you could see what happened. And that's a lot of times what happens when people are abused. And let me tell you some of the abuse that I received on Twitter. Let me actually read you some of the abuse that I received on Twitter, some of the abuse that I did not block. Let's see, from Wyatt B. Earp. I'm guessing his name is Wyatt Benjamin Earp. He says, I said, to discount racism just because he didn't see it is racist on his part, though. And he said, a kid growing up in a log cabin is supposed to know what about racism. So it's like, basically, it would be like if someone said to me, oh, a kid growing up in a middle-class family like your dad's is supposed to know what about abuse. And then I said, if he's smart enough to be aware of what's going on in his world, yes, he is supposed to know about that. And I blocked this person too eventually, and I said, well, sometimes the bar needs to be set low. And I said there was a hint of hate. Discounting their experiences is hateful. And I'm talking about discounting the African American experience is hateful. And someone said, "Oh, you're discounting Phil Robertson's childhood experience." Well, isn't that similar to when I confronted my dad on my the obituary issue, and I asked him to stop replying in the conversation, and he's like, "Oh, well, I think you started the conversation in the first place." Same kind of thing, because both are saying, well, because I don't like the way it's fitting my narrative, and I don't like being confronted, and I don't like what's going on, I'm going to turn it around and blame it on you. Same kind of thing. And I said back to this guy, wise people accept truth that comes out, not just say, well, I didn't see it. And apparently this Wyatt Benjamin Earp guy is not wise. Because he's saying, oh, you're discounting Phil Robertson's childhood experience. No, I'm not discounting Phil Robertson's childhood experience. I'm just saying it'd be like if the truth came out about something and someone said, well, holy shit, then what Greg told me about his dad is not true after all. Or that person could have made a choice to say, well, I didn't see it, so that what Greg must have told me about his dad is true. Like I said, if the person were wise, they would use the new information and say, wow, I didn't really see beyond the surface. Just like Phil Robertson could have said, I thought they were happy, but I didn't know. And I'm trying to find a whole conversation, but again, that person said, what are you, a mind reader? And I'm like, I mean, he wasn't being sarcastic either. He was just saying, whoa, are you a mind reader? Like, he was really surprised. Wish I could find that tweet because it stuck with me, and it's like he caught on, and I was able to catch on to Phil Robertson's abusive nature towards African Americans, discounting their experiences and discounting what they went through just because he didn't see it. And I wish I could find it. And, oh, people were accusing me of being a liberal, too. And someone said to me, how many black kids have you adopted? That was another thing, too. And it's, first of all, I registered as a Republican on purpose. Second, I can't adopt because I'm single. I wouldn't have anyone to support me, and I have cerebral palsy. Third, my granddad was Jewish, but he absolutely hated being a Jew. Just like Phil Robertson could have adopted black kids to assuage his guilt about being a racist. Just because you do something or you are something doesn't mean you don't hate what you're doing or you're using what you're doing or who you are to try to assuage something. So in other words, like I said, just because my granddad was Jewish doesn't mean he was going to be proud to have Jewish grandkids. And just because Phil Robertson adopted a black grandkid doesn't mean that he's going to like blacks. It might be that he's trying to assuage his guilt by adopting a black kid. Just like my granddad was a self-loathing Jew who, on the converse, hid his Jewish heritage, even though he had proud Jewish grandkids, and that's something that no one would ever expect with Jack Zarnecki. And I say that because on the other side, while there are those of us who will admit that Jack Zarnecki was a self-hating Jew, there are those, of course, on Jack Zarnecki's side who would say, well, he's never Jewish, he was related to Stefan Zarnecki, and everything else. And so, sometimes there's no correlation, or sometimes there's an inverse correlation. And as far as the other thing I was going to address too, I want to address, that's the other thing I was going to address too. I'm sorry if I wasn't as clear in the Phil Robertson shtick, but I hope you get my point. That the comments, the racist comments that Phil Robertson made were the real problem, and that discounting what African Americans went through just because he didn't see what they went through, is like when family and other people, and including the social worker, when they would say, well, just because we didn't see the abuse, you know what I mean, though. And the other thing I wanted to address, too, really quickly, is the thing about Megyn Kelly's quote-unquote white Jesus. Well, first of all, St. Nicholas was Turkish, and some people were saying, well, he was Greek and this and this and this, but, I mean, anyway, I'll address that later. I gotta go.